cares?
Men?
I mean, have a conversation with your partner. Encourage her. Be an adult.
How can men and women be equal?
Especially if she's giving you children.
How can men and women be equal when one is expected to die for the other?
I don't expect anyone to die for anyone else. I don't know what that even comes from.
But men are willing to die for you every day. The men in the police force, the men in the military.
What about the women in the police force?
They're 10% and they cause so many problems.
Who cares what percentage women make up of the police force? They're in the police force. My sister-in-law's a cop, actually.
They can't do the same jobs. There's videos on the internet
my
everywhere of
sister-in-law.
women getting their guns taken because they're not strong enough.
Are you just making things up?
No.
Pearl, what are you doing? Like, seriously. Next question.
Do you realize how good you have it in this country?
Absolutely. Best country in the world.
And you get to live the life you live at the expense of men.
No, that's not true.
That is true.
Show me how.
Do you know how many men die every year?
So this point, I would say, again, Pearl's not really articulating very well, but if you, how would I put it? All right, look at how women lived 100, 150 years ago, and how men lived 100, 150 years ago, and now look at how, contrast that to now, to today, right? So, my point is, women have it so much easier in today's world than they did 150 years ago, 100 years ago. I mean, my grandmother, I never saw her with shoes. My grandfather, he never even held the children. He when I had kids, I wanted I was like, here, Grandpa, hold the children. He's like, oh, I don't ever hold them when they're that young. He had 6 kids, okay, and he never even held a baby until my kids. So, times have changed quite a bit, and I think women have improved. Their lives have improved quite a bit. I mean, they have so many more opportunities, so many more conveniences, but in general, men are working just as hard as they were 100 years ago, 150 years ago. So, yeah, so you understand my point is that women's quality of life has really increased. Men's quality of life, I think it's kind of the same. Hasn't really improved much. All right.
There are men that die every year to get you crap.
How many women die every year during childbirth?
Not many.
This country has the highest maternal mortality rate of any developed country. So a lot of women do die as a result of pregnancy and childbirth, yes.
So no one's diminishing women's contribution to society. Yes, childbirth is very difficult. I think she's kind of overstating how many women die. So I'm saying 23 deaths per 100,000 births. Okay, so your chances of dying in childbirth. Let's do that. That's 22 divided by 100,000. 0.0002% chance of dying. So I think Anna's overstating this. Yes, it's still a huge sacrifice, but again, women aren't really having kids. They're not. Women are not. We're not at the replacement birth rate. So women are not fulfilling their duty to society, in my opinion, because they're not having kids. So.
This is painful, man.
Yeah, I don't even really understand what.
Do you have any other questions for me?
Not right now.
All right. Should I move on? Like, what are we doing now?
Can I ask a couple questions?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, let's just jump in here. So why don't we do this? I'll ask you one and then I'll ask you one. We'll kind of go back and forth. I kind of half jokingly said at the beginning, like Pearl had mentioned, I think you actually said it here too, that you believe you may be more of a feminist. Do you consider yourself to be a feminist, and how would you define that?
I don't consider myself to be a feminist, mainly because it's a loaded word, and there are certain outcomes from certain waves of feminism that I don't agree with. Particularly minimizing the importance of men in society. I do think that there is, especially the third wave of feminism that's done that. I personally really value masculine men, and I don't appreciate feminists speaking on behalf of all women in regard to what women prefer. I think the Me Too movement started off as a legitimate grievance with women who were legitimately abused, and it devolved into something laughable and ridiculous, especially when, someone like Aziz Ansari gets accused of being like some sort of sexual predator when he clearly wasn't. So I just don't like how loaded that word is. What I actually genuinely want is equality among the sexes. I'm not looking for women to have an upper hand over men at all. But we need to be based in reality, and we need to look at the statistics and figure out what's really going on. If men are getting a raw deal as a result of divorces, then yeah, the laws need to change. And I genuinely thought prior to this debate that they were getting the raw end of the deal. But as I researched this, I realized I was believing in outdated myths.
So here I would mostly agree with Anna. I think just for everyone's education, so first wave of feminism was 1920s, women wanted the right to vote. Second wave feminism was in the 70s, women wanted to enter the workplace. And then third wave feminism is basically more recent, basically TikTok culture of men and women are equal, but really women are superior, men should be subservient to women, which is kind of what Anna says. So yeah, in this sense, I agree with most of what Anna just said.
So, yeah.
Pearl, let me ask you this. Do you believe and obviously you are citing a lot of anecdotal stories. I do think it's fair to point out every anecdotal story is someone's story, right? So they're not fake stories, and they're not meaningless, obviously, to the people who live those realities. In a lot of cases, they're very painful. Because of your platform, you speak to a lot of those people. How much is that informing where you're coming from in this debate? Is the real stories of people who have been hurt by this stuff?
I mean, I've interviewed 1,000 people. I interviewed a guy who had his kid transitioned and there was nothing he could do about it. I interviewed another guy that he spent $300,000 trying to get his kid back. He actually went overseas to Ukraine during the war, just trying to be in his kid's life. So yeah, it impacts it a lot. Yeah, I've interviewed so many men that want nothing more than to just be a dad and see their kid. They don't even care about the money. They just want to see their children. And if you ask Anna, it doesn't exist, but if you ask any man, everybody knows somebody that it's happened to. And commentators can, they can try to minimize it. They can talk from their ivory towers and pretend it's not happening, but there's a genocide of millions of men that's going on in this country.
You use
a genocide?
1.6 million men commit suicide, have committed suicide since 1970.
Similar rates of women also attempt suicide, but fail because they usually don't resort to more violent means of ending their own lives. Right, so they'll take pills.
Why is that? Why is it that every time we bring up men, you have to bring up women?
Because we're doing a comparative analysis here. You can't just throw out statistics without comparing it.
All right, so the suicide rates, I haven't looked this up. I do believe they are increasing, or the 1.3 million. I would, my opinion. I don't have stats in front of me, but my opinion is it's actually more related to capitalism, which here I would disagree with Pearl. Since the 1970s, workers basically make less and less money, right? Over as a share of GDP, our quality of life keeps decreasing, right? So it's harder and harder for men to make enough money so that they can support a stay-at-home wife and a stay-at-home mother. It's more and more difficult. So that is disempowering. It's emasculating to men, right? So a lot of men, they feel inadequate, that they can't make enough money. What be 50,000, 70,000 now. If you're a 22, 25-year-old kid, well, sorry, you're not a kid. You're still a man. You're a young man. And you don't have skills that are rare, or you're making 25, 30,000 a year maybe. So so it's really the disempowerment, and then again, the feminism has just made it worse. But I think that's really the larger point that both Pearl and Anna are not really talking about.
What the rates are among women.
What I'm pointing out is, I just pointed out that by 2050, more men will have committed suicide than all of the world wars combined. And your first response was, well, women commit suicide too.
Because it is a problem that is inflicting both sexes in this country. It is a tragedy and should be taken seriously, rather than this weird war.
But it's not going to be taken seriously when you pretend it's not going on.
It is going on. Are you kidding me? I mean, how many of our soldiers, our veterans, come back to the United States after multiple deployments, do not get treatment or help with PTSD and other mental issues as a result of being deployed multiple times?
Right.
Like, that's a real problem. How come you don't talk about that?
Yeah, but
you blame it on marriage and divorce instead.
Right, because those soldiers come home to an empty house.
You think that divorce is the reason for most of these suicides?
Men are 9 times more likely to commit suicide after
How many more times likely are women to commit suicide after a divorce?
What about the women?
You don't know the number, right? Because you didn't even care to look into it.
What about the women, though? That's always what you go to.
Just while this is buffering, I'm going to read the topic, which I don't think they're even really talking about. Has modern feminism empowered women or led them into cultural relational decline? I would put this in the context of, with all of this, observe, like look around, observe, right? In general, people feel more and more disconnected, right? People feel more estranged. They feel like they don't have a place, and in my opinion, my observation, feminism has just made it worse. Okay, I think people want to be connected. I think women have a desire to have a healthy relationship with men. Men have desires to have healthy, positive relationships with women. And, the feminism has just created more division, more separation of the sexes. It's harder to connect. So that, they're not really talking about that so much. So again, has modern feminism empowered women or led them to cultural relational decline? I mean, I don't think our is it feminism's fault? No, I think it's more consumerism, materialism is really the majority deserves the majority of the blame. But I do believe modern third wave feminism has also contributed a great deal to the decline of our society. I think everyone agrees our society is not healthy, right? Our society is in decline. Everyone I talk to, we're living through the fall of Rome. So I don't see our culture as very positive, right? And I think most right wingers and left wingers would agree with that. So really the question is, how do we come together, right? For a lot of women, I think let me back up. Most people should ask themselves the question, what is really important in life? Is it important for you to have a family? Is it important for you to have a husband or wife, a healthy relationship with your children? Or is it important to have a career and to have empowerment? And I do think if women chase empowerment and pursue a career, then their family will suffer. And I think for a lot of people, for a lot of women, that's an empty pursuit, right? There's a lot of 40, 50-year-old women that, okay, you had a career, but you're still broke. You don't have a husband. You don't have any kids. Nobody cares about your career. So I think a lot of women are finding that, I'm 40 years old. I can't have kids anymore. I'm not attractive to men. So what is it all for, right? So really, I think people need to find what's really important in their life and go pursue it. Okay, if having a career and empowerment is important to you, that's fine. Go get that. But you're gonna just realize you're gonna miss out on a lot of stuff. Right? You're gonna miss out on a lot of rewarding things. I had children. I fathered children, and I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, I love being a dad and having kids, and but it's not easy, and it does take a lot of sacrifice. Okay.
Male issues. They don't. They do not care about equality. Because whenever you ask them for real equality...
Pearl, my point is that suicide is not just a male issue. It is a huge problem in this country. Women who try to end their own lives are less successful because, again, they're less likely to use a gun, for instance, or hang themselves. They'll take pills, it'll fail. It's just a tragic thing all around. But if you actually care about suicide rates, then you would want to know what's causing the suicide rates or the attempts at suicide.
Divorce.
What can we do as a society to help people to prevent that from happening?
All right, so I just looked this up. Men are basically 4 times more likely to die by suicide than women. What does that mean? I don't know. I think, are men just better at killing themselves, or excuse me, unaliving themselves? Yeah, man, you got to cut that out. You're not supposed to say kill yourself on YouTube. You have to say unalive. So, but anyways, yeah, men are 4 times more likely to succeed in unaliving themselves. So that's a factor that, it doesn't diminish women. It doesn't diminish. I think what Pearl's really trying to say is it doesn't diminish the plight of a woman to acknowledge that this is a problem for men, and it is a bigger problem for men. Women have other problems too, but suicide is not as much of a problem.
Happening, and you wouldn't make it specifically and solely an issue that inflicts one sex over the other.
Again, I mean, you're just proving my point because we talk about male issues and keep bringing it back to the women.
I just want you to compare the stats you're spewing right now with something to compare it to.
Okay. Do you think that women should be on the front lines of the military like the men?
If they can pass the physical test necessary to do so, yeah.
Do you think women should be in selective service? Like the men?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and they should be on the front lines as infantrymen?
If they are physically capable of doing it, yes.
Okay, so no.
So you want to put people who aren't physically... I mean, obese men wouldn't be put on the front lines.
Do you think women should be jailed for false accusations?
Depends on what the false accusations are. If
Just
she's
yes or
falsely
no?
accusing someone of rape, for
Just
instance,
yes. Or no?
yes.
Just okay. Thank you. I agree. Do you think that child custody should be 50-50?
As long as the court determines that both parents are capable of being caretakers, yes. In fact, that's the ideal situation.
Okay, so yes.
Yes.
All right, do you believe in alimony?
I believe in alimony in specific cases where the woman decided to forego having a career and working, decided to stay home and raise the kids. In those cases, I believe she deserves alimony, yes.
But that's a privilege.
You're ridiculous. Anyway, next, move on.
You said it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, especially coming from a girl who grew up in an affluent situation with incredibly wealthy parents. You don't know anything about struggling economically or financially. So to tell a single mother who decided to stay home and raise her children instead of work that she doesn't deserve a penny to raise her kids after a divorce is the most privileged piece of shit thing to say.
This is the type of nagging that drives men to suicide.
Good. But I'm married and you're not, so next.
Jesus Christ. I get it.
A little harder to debate someone who's not an OnlyFans girl, right? Never. I don't need to. Not that I'm judging.
It's why isn't paternity fraud illegal?
We've been over this already.
It's estimated 6% of men are fathering children that are not theirs.
I don't really believe your stats. Like,
the
where are you getting
American
that
Blood
stat
Bank
from?
Association. Are you happy?
Okay.
1/3 of
That's wrong.
paternity
And yeah,
tests.
there should be consequences for that.
But there aren't.
Okay.
But there are.
And there should be. So we agree on that. Next.
Right? You can agree, but you haven't covered it. And that's my point. Is you guys don't care about equality. You want freedom at the expense of men.
Okay. Sure. Next.
Do you think that men should have the right to opt out of fatherhood?
I mean, they actually agree on more. You know, they actually they agree on more than they disagree. Anna is advocating for fairness and equality. She's being fairly consistent.